distance myself from the situation, and to be honest, I think I was in denial. One day I was having a chat with a friend of mine over Facebook, and he asked a question about my family. And so I prepared the usual concoction and just, responded to his message, hoping it would be enough to dissuade him from asking any more questions. After an unusually long pause, he asked, "Richard, why didn't you tell me about your parents?" Well, shit. I thought to myself, I was like, the jig is up. Like, what am I supposed to do? And I was so nervous, my heart was pounding, and I was literally sweating. And I had no choice but to just tell him the truth and hope that, there would be no judgment. So I told him, and his response surprised me in a good way, because it wasn't the typical, "I'm so sorry about what you're going through." It was more, he said something along the lines of, "These things happen," and he told me some of his own experiences. And in that moment, there was a weight that lifted off my chest, because I thought, if this is how people would react, then there really was no point in, telling all these lies. And in that moment, I decided that, I had the courage to begin to come to terms with the family situation, even though it was very hard for me to do so, to be honest. As I grew older, I decided that I wouldn't let the family situation bring me down any longer, because there's more to life than, holding on to the pain of years and years of confusion and guilt and, shame and just different emotions that you're not exactly sure what to do with them. I found that I could be there for people who were going through the same thing I was going through, because I discovered that quite a lot of people were actually going through similar struggles. And I could share my experiences and be there for people. Yes, my parents could go through this horrible thing, but it doesn't have to define me. The situation I don't have to be burdened by it. And I immediately, as I grew in that realization, I began to speak honestly and clear up a lot of the lies I told. And in looking back at it now, I'm really happy about, it's been a long journey, but I'm happy about the fact that there's been growth in the process, and I'm very grateful for that, because if not for the growth, I really don't know where I would be today. I'm who I am because of what I've gone through. And that maturation is something I can say I'm proud of. And that's because there's no, there's no shame in accepting the circumstances that make you who you are. Thank you. Recognizing your true self isn't always an easy task. What do you see when you look in your mirror? Are you willing to look, or do you look away?
Depression is a whale. Massive, terrifying, overwhelming. It swallows you whole into a warm darkness. It is captivating of the senses, of your emotions, of your outlook. You are frozen in its all-powerful presence. And yet its majesty is staggering, its beauty unprecedented and untouchable. It's fascinating. It becomes your friend, and you kind of like it. You like the way its enormous pressure hugs you, its gentle belly comforting you from the storm outside, the way its gigantic eyes appear to be looking only at you, peering right into your soul, convincing you enough that no one else can be let inside. It's hard to remember that those eyes are just the cold, indifferent gaze of nature. Sometimes depression doesn't happen for a reason. Sometimes all I want to do is float along this ocean of nothingness, to become so small that the whale can't see me, that no one can see me, and I disappear. It's my whale, and mine alone. No one can really know what it's like inside your own head. There's no way that I can know what your whale is like either. I've had depression for a very long time, but it took me a while to realize it. My whale hid beneath the surface, took control without me noticing. I used to be fearful of other people's judgments. Now I am only fearful of my own. After a while, I asked myself, where do I end and the depression begins? Have I become the whale? I am tired of fighting it. I am tired of fighting myself. We are codependent creatures. I don't think that will ever change. but I've come to understand that my lack of brain chemicals is not a lack of character. The whale does not confine me. The whale does not define me. Thank you.
I've been rethinking my relationship with alcohol lately. My friends and I like to joke that my best self is the one where I get so drunk I end up passed out on the bathroom floor next to the toilet. And sometimes I just think, is that actually my best self? My grandma was an alcoholic when my dad was growing up. She ended up getting sober until she got Alzheimer's. It's not something my family talks about, it's just something that looms over us, like common knowledge. So growing up, I was never taught how to drink. I was just told, don't do it. And obviously when you get to college, that's unrealistic. I first started drinking the summer before my freshman year started. My friends and I would drive out to frat parties in Kent, Ohio, and upon arrival, I would get as drunk as quickly as possible, and then I usually spent the rest of the night throwing up in the toilet. Around 2 or 3 in the morning, our designated driver said, "All right, I'm sober enough to drive, let's go home." And I made them pull over in the parking lot of Taco Bell. Not to get food, but just so I could throw up some more. And then in the morning, we'd laugh about how drunk they actually were when they got behind the wheel. And I laughed along, but inside I was really uncomfortable because I could have called anyone to come pick me up, but I never did. And when I got to Northeastern, I was really glad it wasn't a big party school because based on that summer, I couldn't handle it. And then I joined Greek life. And every party was the same, with guys drinking Rubinoff like it was water, encouraging me to get drunk with games like Flip Cup and Stack Cup. And I did, and it was fun, and I liked it. Because when I was drunk, my social anxiety would decrease. And people just loved being around me, and they acted like everything I was saying was hilarious and just loved everything I was doing. But no matter how happy I was when I was drunk, the crash came right back down in the morning, and a sadness and anxiety would sink in. Some mornings, my anxiety was so bad I thought my heart was going to burst. I would go over every detail from the night before, every photo, every video, every Snapchat. Is that actually what I looked like? Is that really what my voice sounds like? Did I really need to take that extra shot in the bathroom when I knew I'd already had enough? And what if these people only liked me because I was a good time? I would grapple with these emotions all day until it was either time to start drinking again or I could go to sleep and escape. We treated these stories like they were trophies worthy of celebrating. There were never any real consequences. This is college. This is what you're supposed to be doing. So when I got the call that my brother had been arrested for a DUI, at first I was ashamed, angry, and embarrassed that someone I love so much and look up to could do something so stupid. But the more I thought about it, I felt complicit. No, I wasn't there when he got behind the wheel. But we did encourage each other with our stories, trading off each wild, drunk endeavor. It was the first time I questioned whether my drinking was just the American college experience or a part of my family's dark history with alcohol. So I'm finally learning how to say no to things. I deleted Snapchat, so I'm not looking at a bunch of videos of people ripping shots. I no longer enjoy people rooting me on for taking an extra shot or boot and rallying at the bar. My favorite thing I've learned about myself, though, is this. I love Saturday mornings. I can wake up early and watch the sunrise from my bedroom window. I can make a nice breakfast and go to the movies at 11 in the morning. I can go on a run before the streets of Boston are populated. Learning how to say no has really been a breath of fresh air, and it's been the greatest gift I could have given to myself. Thank you.
Too trusting. I think that's 2 words that describe me. Growing up, I always believed in the good in people. My mom taught me that. But I soon learned that a lot of people would betray me, and a lot of people I found out that I could trust. I think I owed it a lot to the arts. Growing up, I was always part of musicals and plays. I was applauded and rewarded for trusting in people, trusting in my peers, and for expressing myself. There were many times in my life where I felt betrayed and I felt alone, and there's two that stuck out. The first one doesn't seem like a big deal. I was in middle school and I had told my best friend that I hadn't had my first kiss. And the next few following days, everyone knew. And I was heartbroken. It wasn't the fact that I hadn't had my first kiss, it was the fact that my best friend had betrayed me. I didn't say anything to her because I didn't think it was too big of a deal. Flash forward, and I'm in high school. And I get my first boyfriend, junior year. And you know, your first love, you're so in love, and it's rainbows and flowers until it's just not anymore. And in the relationship, I learned a lot about him, but I learned a lot about myself. And I realized I was too expressive. Whenever I was angry, I would express it. Whenever I was sad, any small thing that annoyed me, I would point out, either if it was about myself, about my friends, or about him. And now in college, I'm the same girl but different. I still consider myself a trusting person, but slowly but surely over the years, I started closing myself off to people. I felt alone. I felt betrayed. I felt like I couldn't trust anyone. And I think we've all been there in our lives. And it's normal. And the entire time you think about, what can I change about myself? Is there something wrong with me? But at the end of the day, it's not. And if I were to give advice to my younger self, I would tell her not to change yourself, but to change the people around you. Find people who love and cherish you for who you are, whether you're too open or whether you're too closed off. And cherish and love the people that do that for you. Thank you.
Do you guys remember those baby books that new expecting moms keep, right when they have their child? I found my mom's a few months ago, and in it there's this great section titled, "What Makes My Newborn Special?" The only thing she has written in that section, and all of that empty space, is her full head of hair, accompanied with a picture of the literal back of my head. The back of a newborn's head isn't that exciting. There's so much she could have talked about. My dazzling personality, how many times I shit my diaper, how late I kept her up. But for some reason, that's the only thing that's written there. I've always been on the hairier side of life, and I've always attributed this to the fact that I'm Indian. The Asian kind of Indian, to be specific. I remember so distinctly the first time that I got my eyebrows threaded. I was 14, and I'd been absolutely begging my mom to take me since I was 12. Every time she would go, she looked so beautiful afterwards, and always, but especially after getting them threaded. There's also something about, looking in the mirror and seeing your face, and looking at other girls, seeing that they all had 2 eyebrows, and you so clearly had one. The day finally came, and my mom decided that it was time. I was ready. I was old and mature enough to go get them threaded. I could take care of it. So we drive to this little old lady's house, and we head into her basement. This beautiful basement that's been converted into this in-home spa salon situation. She's got pictures of her kids decorating the walls, their participation trophies and medals. It feels so safe. There's no way anything could go wrong here. She was my fairy godmother, and all of my wishes were about to come true. And then I sat in that chair, and I waited. With the first pull of thread, tears sprang into my eyes. I'd never felt a pain like this before. My mom had to convince me to sit back down and to get this finished. So I sat, and I suffered, and I cried a little more. But when it was over, and when I went to go stand in front of the mirror, I saw what I'd always wanted. I saw 2 eyebrows, and I was like, hey, you look good. You know what's up now. This is what growing up is. This little old lady was watching me, and she saw me, and she said the last 3 words that I've ever wanted to hear. Upper lip too? Innocent question. She meant no harm, but 14-year-old me had a meltdown. I had a mustache. There was even more things to add to my growing list of insecurities. It was just one more thing for me to worry about. Yeah, I said as I climbed back into that chair and went through 6 more minutes of excruciating pain. There's something about opening up your Twitter and your Insta and seeing all of these girls. These girls who will have like their arms up and like pink armpit hair sparkles in it, and it's like, yeah, like fuck the patriarchy, I'm here too, girls grow hair. And seeing that and not being able to relate to it in any way at all. That's how much hair you've grown in 3 months? That's it? In 3 months, I could literally probably French braid my armpit hair. I understand what you're saying, but it's just so ridiculous to me and so completely unrelatable. For a white girl, not shaving and not threading and not waxing gets to be the strong stance of feminism. Something that the New York Times write about, that Cosmo writes about. A girl with a unibrow can grace the cover of Vogue. But for me, not shaving and my body hair was the reason I got bullied on my soccer team, and a unibrow is the reason I couldn't look in the mirror for years. I decided to talk about this here today after a long conversation I'd had with some of my roommates, 5 other brown girls. Somehow, someway, the topic of body hair came up, and we all just let loose. It was hours of discussion. We talked about the first time we got our eyebrows threaded. We talked about what happens when people notice the hair you weren't supposed to have. We talked, and we laughed, and we talked some more about, you know, threading, tweezing, waxing, plucking, lasering, all the things that you can do to make yourself look like this. We talked, and we understood each other. We understood ourselves and our insecurities. And somehow, together, it felt a lot less difficult to accept them. The thing that I realized about self-acceptance is that it's not waking up in the mirror, staring at yourself, and saying, well, this is it. You're allowed to grow. You're allowed to let yourself change, and you're allowed to do whatever it takes to make yourself feel comfortable. Self-acceptance isn't something that comes knocking on your door. It's not something that you just see while you're scrolling through Instagram. It's something that you have to actively run after. And for you, if it's like me and it means that you need a team of people and some hot wax, then go for it. It's fine. Thank you, guys.
It was in middle school when I first started having battles with mental illness. It started out as just anxiety. When my friends would ask me to hang out, I'd get excited, but I would get so anxious about everything. I'd be nervous about what to wear, what I'd bring, where do I go. And I would freak out about everything. And it would get to such a boiling point that there was times where I just said no, like I couldn't handle it. So I just told them, no, I made up a story. I had something else I had to do. So unsurprisingly, they started slowly asking me to hang out less. And that makes sense. But when they did ask me, which was getting rare and rare, I always had this fear that they really didn't want me there because it was so infrequent that they asked me. That was like, maybe they just needed an extra for basketball or whatever, and they just thought of me because they couldn't think of anyone else. So I had this fear, and I just continued to be nervous and more anxious about hanging out with them. So I isolated myself more. It was about middle school, high school, when I also realized that anytime I was stressed, I would handle it terribly. Anytime that I was stressed, I would just shut down. I needed to do things to get things done, which stressed me out, but instead of working hard or just putting my head down and doing it, I would shut down. I'd close myself off. I just wouldn't do anything. So both these things, my anxiety and my stress, they led to me isolating myself more and more. And I just thought that I was a loner. You know, that was my excuse for it. But when you start to spend as much time alone as I have, it starts to kind of eat away at you. And your thoughts, they turn sour. For example, when I first thought I was just a loner, but eventually that turned into questioning. Why am I alone? Why am I always here? And then it turned into, what is wrong with me? Why do people not want to be with me? Why am I always here? And I never thought that I was depressed. I always denied it. It was always something that seemed too real. That depression was for some people with real problems. I didn't have any real problems. You know, my family life was fine. My parents were awesome. My family's great. So I couldn't understand, you know, why I felt this way. And I don't know what the scariest moment in your guys' lives were, Maybe it was something you went through, like war or something physical. Maybe you had a big surgery or you were in a car accident. To me, it was an internal struggle. I remember it like it was yesterday. It was about 2.5 years ago. It was my first semester in college. I was at St. Joseph's University in Philadelphia. It's before I came to Northeastern, and it was a weekend. It was just a normal weekend. It was a Friday night. It was around 11 p.m. to 12 midnight, somewhere around there. And I was alone. And that was typical of my college experience. And I was just lying there in bed in my dorm room. My dorm room was on the top floor of my residence building. My roommate had gone out for the night, like normal people did, I felt. And I was here alone, just lying there. And I just started to think. I saw these people go up. There was this ladder that went up onto the roof. I thought of it for some reason. I thought, I know where that ladder is. I could just go up there real quick. I could sneak up there. I could walk over to the ledge. Just step onto that ledge. Just take a deep breath. Close my eyes and just fall. My loneliness would be gone. My pain would be gone. My life would be gone. It would all be over. But luckily, I just laid there. I was paralyzed. I was so scared. I started to cry, but I was staring straight up at the ceiling, so the tears just collected in my eyes. It became uncomfortable, but I didn't move. I didn't do anything because I was petrified that if I did move, even just to wipe my eyes, that I would actually go up and I would go up to the roof and I would jump. So I just laid there. I laid there for what seemed like hours and hours. Eventually my roommate came back, and once he came into the room, I turned my back to him. I continued to lay there. And I lay there all the way till morning. I didn't sleep for a second. Now, I'd love to stand here and tell you that I've never thought of suicide after that night. I'd love to say that I'm on a path to happiness or something, that I love life. But the truth is, I've been there time and time again. I have to drag myself out of bed some mornings. Sometimes it feels impossible. But what I do know, what I've learned, is that when I do open up and talk about it, which this is one of the very few times that I actually have, I feel better. I feel better inside. I feel like not alone, at least to some extent. So, if anyone's ever gone through anything like I have, or felt anything close to depression, please talk to someone. Talk to me if you want to. I definitely understand. Because depression and mental illness can be the scariest thing to go through. But it's 10 times worse when you're alone and you feel isolated. So please, I know that I've never really been open. I've always closed myself off to people. But I know that what I need is to talk to people and express my feelings. So I'm trying every day to do that. Thank you.
I think we all need to accept the fact that we are not perfect. We all need to face the reality that we have many faults. It's a hard process, I know, but I'm sure we are strong enough to go through it. As a normal human being, it's easy to have negative feelings of yourselves. Maybe you think you are not outgoing enough to make as many friends as others. Maybe you are not satisfied with your face, your body shape, or the sound of a voice. Or maybe the feelings of anxiousness and depression occupy your whole heart and you just can't breathe. To me, I might have experienced all of these, more or less. But what gave me the most impression is not from one of these. It's like one day you just realize you are not smart enough. You are not as smart as the kid who has the best academic performance in your class. You are not capable as the kid who has the kind of leadership skills and shining in the crowd. I just feel so thin that others are better than me, and the fact that I'm so normal. It's kind of normal that you can't distinguish yourself from others, and you can't find your own strengths. At that time, I don't want to face the reality, and I try to run away from it. Try not to think about it and do nothing. But it was kind of strange that the more you don't want to think about it, the more it appears in your mind. The more you try to do nothing, the worse the situation is. I just remember it gave me a strong hit when I first decided to study abroad. Most directly, I don't have the shiny resume or the kind of rich social experience that can help me outstanding, because I'm so normal. Looking at other people's achievements, I just feel so depressed when I'm not the one who is smart enough to be capable of all these things. I was disappointed about myself, and I crashed on my first interview. I totally messed it up when the interviewer asked me what my strengths are. My mind was blank at that time. I couldn't find a word to express myself, and all my moods surged up into my mind. I burst into tears uncontrollably. I don't have any strengths, I cried. I'm useless. This definitely shocked the interviewer because there was a short silence, and then she turned off the camera and came to comfort me. She said, everyone has their own strengths. Although there might be another person smarter than me, I still can't deny my own power. She believed I have some unique qualifications others don't, and I just need to keep working on that and fight for myself. This definitely calmed me down. I realized I couldn't let these bad feelings master my life. I do have flaws, I do have weakness, and I am normal. But this is exactly how a normal human being is. I can't run away from this fact, from my flaws. I have to do something. I have to face them bravely and do something to change the situation I had. Later on, I joined in the non-profit organization to serve the community. I studied hard to improve my academic performance. I stopped comparing myself to others, and I started to enjoy the life and hold faith that I'm unique. And it works because I'm here. So I think we all need to accept the fact that we are not perfect, accept the negative feelings of ourselves, and try to conquer it, change it into a positive power. You may have flaws, you may be normal, but you are unique, so you are not normal at all. You can become a positive force, a positive you. Accept negative feelings, but not let them paralyze us. There is a saying, what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Accept who you are and be unique. Thank you.
So if you've ever experienced self-doubt or the feeling of self-consciousness in your life, you probably notice that it comes combined with a feeling of being alone. And I've experienced it too. When I was much younger, I had grown up with the same people, like from elementary school to high school, and I felt very comfortable around them. They all knew me very well, and I didn't put up any fronts when I was around them, nor could I have. They probably would have called me out on it. And when I came to college, I was suddenly forced into this community of people who I didn't know, people who I felt were better than me, better looking, smarter, more outgoing, more ambitious. And those feelings really stunted my social growth for a couple of years, until I started doing two things. The first is I started going to the gym and improved my self-image. And the second thing is I realized that everybody poops. And I know that sounds really funny, and I probably could have picked a better metaphor for it, but the reality is I'm like a 12-year-old in a 23-year-old body. Yeah, we all get it. So, Jeremy poops. Your favorite celebrity poops. I poop. Your teachers poop. Your boss poops. Anyone that we hold high on a pedestal, for whatever reason, they all poop. we all do this really primal and sort of gross thing, hopefully on a regular basis. And I feel that it sort of brings everybody to an equal playing field. It's similar to going into an interview and imagining whoever's interviewing you in their underwear, or just imagining yourself in your underwear if you're sort of into that thing. Well, once you mentally level yourself with whoever you think is on the pedestal, you realize that we're all kind of the same. We've all felt anxious, we've all felt self-conscious, we've all felt doubt, we've all felt depressed, homesick, whatever. We've all been through it. It doesn't matter if you're working 40 hours a week to try to put yourself through school, or if you have the means to go far away on vacation for every break and party on yachts and what have you. It doesn't really matter. We all feel the same things and we all poop. If I could give any advice to my younger self, it would be to stop feeling so self-conscious and worrying about what other people think about you all the time. That's the thing about being self-conscious. It limits what you can be. You can't be the best you that you could possibly be because you're just worried about how you look to other people. Like, I don't want to go to that job interview because they might reject me, or I don't want to stand up in front of a room of however many people are here and tell this really super personal story about myself. I don't want to sing out loud in public because my voice sucks. Or, I don't want to talk to that cute girl because she might think I'm a creep. It doesn't matter. The thing that makes you cool and the thing that makes you like a good person to be around is not the things you have or what you do or how much money you have or how you dress. It doesn't matter. It's the fact that you can go and be yourself in front of anybody, and I think that makes you really cool. So when you feel self-conscious, put that stuff aside. Just keep pooping and good will come, I promise.
My name is Tiffany, at Joey.
Choose to be happy.
Let yourself grow.
Love all but trust a few.
Break down walls.
No regrets.
Your life is better than your mistakes.
Never bottle things in.
I love Saturday mornings.
It's okay to feel.
Keep a sense of humor.
Embrace your uncertainty.
Be proud of who you are and eat as well as you can.
So be present.
No one is indestructible. Be unapologetic.
Keep pooping.
Be unique.
This is real.